Happy Monday, football fans. It is Super Bowl week. You have found Behind the Lines, part of the Lines podcast presented by BetMGM. My name is Stephen Andress, managing editor at thelines.com, joined each and every Monday by Christian Cipollini, sports trader at BetMGM. On this podcast, we are going to look at the top 5 most popular Super Bowl props by handle at BetMGM. And we will also look at just generally where the odds are sitting right now. So, Christian, happy Super Bowl week. The first question I have for you here on Behind the Lines this week, unlike every other NFL game during the season where we've talked about in past weeks where the public really isn't moving the line, does the public move the line in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's a good question because, it is a little bit different from other weeks, but typically, no, not really. At times, it can. Like this week, it opened briefly at 3.5, got to 4, and then the public did kind of move it to 4.5. But across the market, there's so much money being bet into these across all different books that the price kind of just becomes baked into what it is. So typically, no, it just kind of falls where the money takes us.
Makes sense. So, I mean, this isn't, to follow up on that, this isn't truly a try and get 50-50 handle on both sides of the line in the total situation, right? This is not that.
Yeah, that's always the goal, is to try to get there for the book, but it's never going to be perfect because, it's going to come in ebbs and flows from there. But as you'll see for the Super Bowl, this is one of the few where you're going to get a market consensus almost across the line. There's not really going to be a lot of differences throughout. So that is where we'll have our best chance at setting it at 50-50 is to be there. So that's why it leads that way.
So as we record this right now around lunchtime on the East Coast on Monday, where are we sitting at BetMGM right now on the spread and in terms of the percentage of handle on both sides?
So it does kind of fall in line to what we were just talking about there. Currently, we're at about 60-40. About 61% on the Bengals, actually, at BetMGM. So that's kind of how it goes. It probably will end up as close as we can get to 50-50. We'll see, a majority of our money is still going to come in, Saturday, Sunday morning, of course. But as of right now, we're 60-40 on the Bengals.
One thing we've talked about here on the podcast with Matt Brown and Brad Allen last week was kind of speculating that in past Super Bowls, as the game gets closer, you'll see more and more money come in on the underdog as opposed to a lot of other NFL games, popular NFL games, where the closer and closer you get to kickoff, you'll get more money on the favorite. Is that a fair assumption? Have you seen that in your experience with the Super Bowl where closer to kick means more money on the underdog, and have your colleagues seen that as well in the past?
It kind of can depend on like the game. This Super Bowl, there isn't like that big name like there has been in the past. So like sometimes that will kind of skew it in different ways.
Maybe like a Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes. Is that what you're kind of thinking about?
Yeah, exactly. Like where that might kind of lean people the other way. But this one, for the most part, I would think from a public and perspective, it is almost as much of a toss-up as you could say for that. I mean, the Rams are the favorite there, but from the better perspective, the 4.5, I think you could really convince yourself either way in this case.
Stephen Andress back with Christian Cipollini. Time now to look at the 5 most popular props in terms of handle, the most bet props so far in terms of the money that has come into the sports book at the start of Super Bowl week as we record this on Monday, February the 7th. So, Christian, how about we go 5 through 1 here in terms of the most popular props by handle, and we'll begin with number 5 at BetMGM.
Okay, actually one of my favorite ones. So on some of these, it varies state to state. A lot of the states have different rules, so some of these you might not be able to bet in certain states and you are in others. So, but this one I know isn't in all states, but this is one of our more popular ones at 5 is the Gatorade bath. Our options are orange, blue, yellow, green, or lime are combined into one, clear, red and pink are one, and then purple variations are one. And so far, our betting favorite, 36% of the money is on yellow. Our second biggest favorite, 23% on orange, and third is purple with 15%.
Is yellow Gatorade the favorite, or I should say the favorite in the odds, not necessarily the handle?
Let me double check. I believe it is, yes.
And here's the other question I have too. And there was, I think, a year where Bill Belichick didn't even get a Gatorade bath. There was no Gatorade bath. So what happens for bettors if that happens?
It would be void in that instance if there is no Gatorade bath shown.
Perfect. An obvious question, I'm sure, to a lot of bettors that are out there, but I'm sure we get a lot of casual bettors for the Super Bowl as well that want to know, have all their bases covered, and understand what happens in that situation. So, how about number 4 here? Number 4 for the Super Bowl most popular props in terms of handle.
Yeah, number 4 is a good one too. The first touchdown jersey number over under.
Really?
We have it set at 18.5. Where the over is taking 65% of the money.
That's interesting to me because, I mean, we've entered this new stage of the NFL where so many receivers are wearing numbers in the teens or the low double digits. It's not, all these top receivers wearing, big numbers in the 80s like they used to in the 1980s and 1990s where, Jerry Rice and Michael Irvin were number 80 and number 88. So, I'm surprised that the over is taking the money there, considering Cooper Kupp and I'm drawing a blank here on what number Jamar Chase wears here. I have to look it up real quick. Number 1. I mean, so the two biggest receivers, number 1 and number 10 for Cooper Kupp. Man, I might have to run to the book here and take the under on that one, Christian.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. Yeah, I guess you pretty much have the field to the other numbers, but yeah, we're seeing more action on the over currently.
And you also get the quarterbacks rushing for that one included as well with single digits.
Yep,
so that's a fun one. That's a really fun one.
Yeah, the rushing touchdowns come in there too. Yeah, it's not just a receiving touchdown. Yeah, so that
definitely the running backs obviously over 18.5 in that case. So what's the price on the under? Do you have it?
1 second.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. It's but I'm sure it's plus money, obviously, if the other side is the favorite. So that's a fun one. I really like that one. How about number 3 on your list?
Number 3 is kind of different variations of the same bet, which is like kind of the method of victory. So I'll go first scoring play. So touchdown, field goal, safety, where field goal is taking the most money, but of course safety is our biggest liability and also taking the second most money there.
So not a big surprise there that safety is your biggest liability, right? That tends to be a pretty popular one, even if it's not necessarily in the top 5.
Yeah, of course. After a few years back when safety was the first scoring play, now we will always see action from here on out, I would think. Yeah,
that I don't really have an opinion on whether touchdown. I wouldn't bet the safety personally. I know people like to bet it. It's not. I would not bet the safety, but a lot of this is I have faith in Sean McVay's script for the first drive, and not as much faith in the Bengals. So I think who I like in that side is very much dependent on the coin toss, and I can't wait till the coin toss to bet it. That's the problem. So what are you going to do?
Well, kind of on that, I'll kind of throw another. You just mentioned the Bengals, so a similar type of market that I kind of looped all together is Bengals first drive is another one that we've actually seen a lot of action on, where punt is the overwhelming favorite. We're taking 90% of our bets on punt, which it is the favorite at minus 110. So punt, offensive touchdown, field goal, or any other outcome. And punt is the favorite for Bengals first drive.
We're going to talk about it a lot when we go dive deep into this matchup on Friday, but I can see why people are betting that because the Bengals offensive line is going to have a really difficult time in my mind blocking this number 1 front for the Rams in terms of pass rush win rate. So we shall see how it plays out, but I can understand why the punt money is coming in there. All right, number 2 on your list.
Number 2, we have the coin toss.
I would have thought that would have been number 1, Christian. I'm a little surprised. You have a slight upset here in the top 5 props.
Yeah, the number 1 is kind of unfair, but yeah. But coin toss, we have a few different variations of it. The most popular being heads or tails, where tails, as we mentioned last week, tails is currently 67% of our bets are on tails.
Well, it never fails, Christian. So I don't know why people would ever bet heads. I actually saw something. It was, we get the same stupid coin toss content across sports and sports betting every year for the Super Bowl. But it was last year. I actually saw a scientist try to tell us that I can't remember which side it was, but one of the sides is actually better than 50-50 in the Super Bowl because they're using a commemorative coin, and one side of the commemorative coin is heavier than the other. Therefore, using physics and advanced math and calculus, you're more likely to have one of the sides of the coin land up than the other because of the weight of the commemorative coin, and they're not using like a normal quarter. So go search that out if you really want to try and find the slightest of edges in the Super Bowl coin toss market.
Got to get any edge you can.
Yeah, there you go. Started off right with the coin toss. All right, the number one most popular prop for the Super Bowl in terms of handle at BetMGM is what?
So a little unfair, but it is the Super Bowl MVP market. But we do have a couple interesting selections here. I'll tell you our three biggest liabilities, which are all pretty interesting. Our biggest liability, number one, is overwhelming, and it's Aaron Donald, who's currently sitting at plus 1,200, but I believe he opened at about plus 3,000.
Wow.
We've been taking money on him ever since. Our second biggest liability is Evan McPherson, Bengals kicker, at 100 to 1.
The cult favorite, the cult following.
Yes, a shocking amount of money for a kicker, but he has kicked game-winning field goal in 2 straight games, so maybe they're onto something here.
No, they're not. I'm
I don't think so
really
either.
not.
Yeah, I'm not expecting a kicker to win.
Jim Nantz gave him the best nickname, the best new nickname I've heard all season, and called him Shooter McPherson, but from Happy Gilmore. But no kicker has ever won Super Bowl MVP, and I don't think it's going to start now.
I don't think they've ever been close either. And our third biggest liability is Von Miller, who's currently sitting at 50 to 1. So 2 defensive players and a kicker are our current biggest liability.
I can tell you my Friday podcast co-host, Brad Allen, already has bets in on both Aaron Donald and Von Miller, trying to land a long shot here for MVP, trying to bank on that weak Bengals offensive line. What else were you going to mention?
In terms of bet dollars, our top 5 in order is Burrow is the most bet money. Second is Aaron Donald. Third is Stafford. 4 is Kupp, and 5 is Jamar Chase.
Makes sense for sure. I mean, I can see why. We actually looked last week, and I was curious if you looked at the stats for Stafford and Cooper Kupp in each of their last 6 wins. And I think Kupp would have been the MVP in 3 of those 6 wins. So that's the first part of the equation, figure out who's going to win the game. We're going to disagree on our podcast on Friday a bit. Matt Brown, I think, likes the Bengals, and Brad and I like the Rams. So that's the first part of the equation, and then figuring it out if there's any value on any of the players on that side. But that's a fun one, man. I appreciate the insight as always. The top 5 props for the Super Bowl at BetMGM. For the rest of you out there, Matt Brown will be back for the rest of this week, both here on the podcast and on our YouTube channel. Make sure you're checking us out there. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow all of our Super Bowl coverage, betting coverage leading up to Super Bowl 56 between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams. For now, for Christian Cipollini, I'm Stephen Andress. Thanks so much for joining us here on Behind the Lines, part of the Lines podcast presented by BetMGM.